Hi, and welcome back to Reddit Terrible Stories. I didn't let my friend copy my homework, and now she says I'm selfish. It all started on a Tuesday morning, the kind of morning when the sky was still gray, the air carried that damp chill of almost rain, and my brain felt as sluggish as the weather. I walked into first period clutching my neatly organized binder, my math homework tucked inside a bright yellow folder. I'd spent 2 hours the night before going over quadratic equations until my head hurt. I wasn't the fastest learner in math, but I was persistent. That persistence had earned me decent grades and, more importantly, the satisfaction of knowing I had done the work myself. Samantha, my so-called best friend, slid into the seat next to me just as the bell rang. Her hair was thrown into a messy bun, mascara smudged beneath her eyes like she hadn't slept. She gave me a bright but slightly desperate smile. "Hey, can I see your homework really quick?" I blinked. "You mean to check answers?" Her laugh was too high-pitched, too forced. "No, like, copy it." I didn't get around to finishing mine. I felt a little jolt of unease. Sam and I had been close since middle school, bonded over band practice and our mutual hatred of gym class. But asking to copy? That wasn't something I expected from her. "I don't know," I said slowly, pulling my folder closer to my chest. "We're supposed to do our own work." She rolled her eyes and leaned in. "Come on, it's just one assignment. Mr. Kane never checks that hard anyway. Please? You know my mom made me babysit my little brothers last night? I literally had no time." I hesitated. I knew her situation. Her mom relied on her a lot, and she did spend countless hours wrangling her younger siblings. But something inside me resisted. I thought about all those problems I'd worked through, the eraser smudges on my notebook where I'd corrected mistakes. Handing it over now felt like letting her take credit for my effort. "Sam," I whispered, "I can't. It's not fair." And her smile cracked, replaced by a sharp edge. "Wow, seriously? After everything I do for you? You can't just help me this one time?" Guilt immediately wrapped around me like a snake. But before I could respond, Mr. Kane strode into the classroom and told us to pass our homework forward. I handed mine in, feeling Sam's glare burning into my side like a hot coal. The rest of class, she didn't say a word to me. Her pen tapped angrily against her desk, her foot jiggled, and her arms were crossed tight. Normally, she and I whispered jokes back and forth, passing doodles when Kane wasn't looking. But that day, silence hung between us like a wall. When the bell rang, she stood up without waiting for me and walked out. I scrambled to pack up and catch her in the hall. "Sam, wait." She spun on me, eyes flashing. "You're so selfish. You know that? Friends help each other, but I guess you only care about yourself." Then she stormed away before I could answer. Her words stuck like burrs under my skin. Was I selfish? Or was I just standing my ground? At that moment, I wasn't sure. All I knew was that something in our friendship had shifted, and I had no idea how bad the fallout would get. The cafeteria was loud, as always. Trays clattered, kids shouted across tables, the smell of reheated pizza and fries hung in the air. Normally, Sam and I sat at the same table near the vending machines where we could gossip about teachers and complain about upcoming tests. But that Wednesday, when I walked in with my lunch, she was already there, surrounded by three of our other friends, laughing like she didn't even notice me. I hesitated. Maybe yesterday had just been a bad mood, I thought. Maybe she'd cool off. I approached the table, sliding my tray down next to hers. "Hey," I said softly. She glanced at me, her smile faltering for half a second. Then she turned back to the group and started talking louder, ignoring me completely. My stomach twisted. I picked at my food, trying to join the conversation once or twice, but she shot me quick looks that said, "Don't!" Every time I opened my mouth, she redirected the topic, cutting me out without even saying my name. It was like I was invisible. By the end of lunch, I felt sick. When the bell rang, she walked off with the others, and I trailed behind alone. That night, I tried to focus on my English essay, but her words echoed in my mind. "You're selfish." I kept asking myself, was I? Would a good friend have handed over the homework? Or was I right to say no because friends shouldn't take advantage of each other like that? The next day, things got worse. In biology, I overheard her whispering to our lab partner, Megan. She thinks she's so much smarter than everyone. Like, it must be nice to sit around with nothing to do but homework while the rest of us actually have lives. I froze, my cheeks burning. She was talking about me. When Megan glanced my way, she gave me an awkward smile and shrugged, like she didn't want to pick sides. After class, I caught up to Sam at her locker. "Can we talk?" I asked, my voice shaking. She slammed her locker shut. "What's there to talk about? You made it pretty clear. You don't care about me." "That's not true," I protested. "I do care. But copying my homework isn't fair. I'd get in trouble too." She crossed her arms. "You could have trusted me. I wouldn't have let you get caught. But no, you only think about yourself." The hallway noise swirled around us lockers, banging, kids shouting, sneakers squeaking. I felt like the floor was tilting under me. "I'm sorry you feel that way," I said quietly, because what else could I say? Her lips curled into a smirk. "Save it. Don't bother sitting with me at lunch anymore." Then she walked away, leaving me standing there like an idiot. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. This was my best friend, the person who used to call me at midnight to vent about crushes, the one who came over when my parents fought, the one I thought would always be on my side. And now she was treating me like an enemy, because I didn't let her copy one homework assignment. It felt unreal. And the worst part? I had a gut feeling it wasn't going to end there. By the end of the week, I couldn't deny it anymore. Sam wasn't just mad at me, she was on a mission. I first noticed it when people I barely talked to started giving me looks in the hallway. Some curious, some smug, some even a little hostile. At first, I thought I was imagining it. But then, during gym, one of the girls in my class whispered loud enough for me to hear, "That's the one who won't even help her best friend." My stomach dropped. Sam had told people. The rumors spread faster than I could keep up with. Apparently, I was selfish, stingy, and even a know-it-all who thinks she's too good for everyone. None of it was true. But once people decide they want to believe something, the truth doesn't matter much. I tried to brush it off. "It's fine," I told myself in the mirror before school. "They'll forget about it in a week." But by Friday, even teachers were noticing the weird tension. When Mr. Harris paired me and Sam for a project in history, she rolled her eyes and said loudly, "Ugh, I can't work with her." The whole class turned to look at me. "Is there a problem?" Mr. Harris asked, clearly annoyed. Sam shrugged, leaning back in her chair. "I just don't think she's a team player. But whatever." My face burned. I wanted to crawl under my desk. After class, I confronted her again. "Why are you doing this? Why are you trying to make everyone hate me?" She narrowed her eyes. "I'm not trying. I'm just telling the truth. People should know who you really are." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Over homework? Seriously? Her lips tightened, but she didn't answer. She just turned and walked away, her ponytail swinging like a flag of victory. That night, I sat in my room, scrolling through my phone. Normally, Sam and I would be sending each other memes, complaining about assignments, or planning our weekend hangouts. Now, the silence was deafening. I opened Instagram and felt a stab in my chest. She'd posted a story of her and Megan, captioned, "Some friends actually have your back." I put my phone face down on the desk, heart pounding. It wasn't just about homework anymore. This was about loyalty, pride, maybe even control. Sam wasn't just upset I had broken some unspoken rule she thought I had to follow, and now she wanted to punish me. But as much as it hurt, another thought flickered in my mind. Maybe this wasn't about me being selfish. Maybe this was about her needing me to always say yes. And I was finally realizing how dangerous that was. The question was, what was I going to do about it? By Monday, things had officially shifted. The lunch table where Sam and I always sat felt like enemy territory. Normally, I'd sit down first, then she'd join, and soon the rest of our group would gather. But that day, when I walked over with my tray, I noticed Sam had already taken my usual spot, and Megan was sitting right beside her. I hesitated. It wasn't like I owned a seat, but this was deliberate. Everyone could see it. "Hey," I said cautiously as I slid into the empty spot across from them. Sam didn't even look up from her sandwich. Megan smirked and said, "Wow, brave of you to sit here." A couple of the others laughed under their breath. My stomach tightened, but I forced myself to ignore it. I picked at my fries, pretending I didn't notice the tension crackling around me. Halfway through lunch, Sam finally spoke, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "So, I was working on that math homework last night, and, unlike some people, I actually had to figure it out myself." The girls around her giggled. My fork clattered onto the tray. "Seriously?" I said. "You're still mad about that?" Sam leaned forward, her eyes sharp. "I'm not mad. I just think it's funny that someone who pretends to be such a good friend can't even help when it matters." The table went quiet. Everyone was watching me. My heart pounded, but I refused to let her win. "Helping is one thing," I said. "Letting you copy my work isn't help. It's cheating. And I'm not going to risk my grade for that." Her cheeks flushed. For a second, I thought I saw guilt flicker in her eyes. But then she shot back, "You think you're better than me. That's the real problem." "No," I said firmly, though my hands trembled. "I just think I deserve respect. And so does my work." The silence stretched. Then Megan snorted, "Wow, someone's dramatic." The others chuckled again, and I realized the conversation was over. Not because I'd lost, but because Sam didn't want to hear me. She didn't want resolution. She wanted control. When lunch ended, I walked out alone, my tray still half full. It stung more than I wanted to admit. I kept thinking about all the times I'd shared snacks with Sam, stayed up late helping her study, even covered for her when she forgot an assignment. And now she was acting like I was the villain in her story. That afternoon, I overheard two classmates whispering in the hallway. "I heard she's not friends with Sam anymore." Yeah, apparently she refused to help her. Kinda selfish, right? My chest ached, but I kept walking. It felt like no matter what I said, the story would always be twisted against me. That night, as I stared at my open math book, I thought about something my mom always told me. You teach people how to treat you by what you allow. Maybe losing Sam meant I was finally learning where to draw the line. But the real question was, could I handle the fallout? By Tuesday morning, I could feel it the second I walked into school. The weight of people staring, the not-so-subtle whispers when I passed by. Normally, I'd head straight to my locker, shove in my books, and laugh with Sam before first period. But now, Sam was leaning against the lockers with Megan, both of them talking animatedly while glancing in my direction. I knew immediately. They were talking about me. It wasn't paranoia. By third period, the rumors had fully taken shape. Apparently, I was selfish, fake, and a terrible friend. Someone even said I bragged about being smarter than everyone else. At first, I tried to ignore it, but in the cafeteria, I overheard a freshman say, "She won't even share notes. Who does that?" It was like the whole school had been handed a script, and I was the villain in everyone's play. That night, I vented to my mom again. "It's not fair," I said, pacing across the kitchen. "She's making me out to be some kind of monster because I wouldn't let her cheat." Mom stirred a pot on the stove and gave me her usual calm look. Sometimes people lash out when they feel exposed. Your friend probably knows deep down that you're right, but admitting it would mean facing her own responsibility. I don't care about responsibility. I just don't want everyone to hate me. My voice cracked at the end. Mom put down the spoon and pulled me into a hug. "Sweetheart, real friends don't ask you to compromise yourself. And people who believe gossip without asking you first aren't worth your energy." Her words helped a little, but it didn't stop the loneliness from creeping in. The next day, I walked into class and found a sticky note on my desk. In messy handwriting, it read, "Selfish much?" My stomach dropped. Someone was actively going out of their way to target me now. I crumpled it up, but my teacher saw the look on my face. After class, she pulled me aside. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. For a moment, I thought about spilling everything, but instead, I forced a smile. "Yeah, just tired." She didn't look convinced, but she let me go. By Thursday, the situation reached a breaking point. During lunch, Sam made a point of loudly saying, "Well, I guess some people don't care if their friends fail. As long as they get the good grades, right?" Laughter rippled across the table. Something in me snapped. I stood up, tray in hand, and said, "You know what, Sam? You're right. I do care about my grades. I care about my future. and I'm not going to apologize for working hard. If that makes me selfish, then fine. But at least I'm not trying to drag other people down just because I don't want to put in the effort. The table went silent. Sam's mouth opened, but no words came out. I turned and walked away, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped my tray. That afternoon, I sat alone in the library. For the first time, I realized something important. Maybe this wasn't about losing Sam as a friend. Maybe it was about realizing she'd already stopped being one a long time ago. Still, the question loomed, if I wasn't Sam's friend anymore, who was I in this social world that suddenly felt so hostile? The fallout from my cafeteria outburst didn't take long to ripple through the school. By the next morning, whispers weren't just about me being selfish anymore. They were about how I had snapped at Sam in front of everyone. Depending on who you asked, I was either a total drama queen or finally standing up for myself. Oddly enough, that second group surprised me. In my English class, a girl named Rachel leaned over and whispered, "That was badass yesterday." Sam had it coming. I blinked at her, unsure whether it was a trap or genuine support, but the look in her eyes seemed sincere. It dawned on me that while Sam had plenty of influence, she didn't own everyone's loyalty. Some people were just tired of her theatrics. Still, it didn't erase the awkwardness. At lunch, I sat at the far corner of the cafeteria, earbuds in, pretending I had no interest in joining anyone else. It was lonely, but at least it gave me peace. That afternoon, Sam cornered me by the lockers. Her voice was icy. "So, that's how it is? You're going to embarrass me in front of everyone just because you're too selfish to help your friend out?" I shut my locker slowly, heart pounding, but I forced my voice to stay calm. "No, Sam. I embarrassed you because you wouldn't stop trying to make me look bad for setting boundaries. You wanted my homework? That's not friendship, that's using me." Her eyes narrowed. "You think you're better than me, don't you?" "I think I'm done being treated like a doormat," I said quietly. For a second, I thought she might actually slap me. Instead, she scoffed and walked off, muttering something to Megan. That night, I sat in my room replaying the confrontation over and over. A part of me wanted to cry, but another part felt lighter, like I'd finally drawn a line in the sand. The next week, I started noticing small shifts. A few people who had been distant began making casual conversation again. Rachel invited me to sit with her study group, and to my surprise, it felt normal. They weren't using me for homework. They were actually collaborating, sharing ideas, asking questions. It was the kind of academic teamwork I'd always wished Sam and I could have had. Of course, Sam didn't make things easy. She continued her little whisper campaign, rolling her eyes dramatically when I walked into a room. But the sting was duller now. Maybe because I finally understood. Her opinion didn't have to define me. Still, there were nights when I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I'd lost more than I gained. Could years of friendship really dissolve so quickly? Or had the friendship already been broken long before and I was only just now admitting it? One Saturday afternoon, I was at the library working on a history project when Rachel sat down across from me. "Hey," she said casually, "some of us are going to get coffee after this. Want to come?" I hesitated. Normally, I'd have run straight to Sam with an invite like that. But now, I smiled. "Yeah, I'd like that." And just like that, I realized something. Losing one friend, even one I'd known for years, didn't mean I had to be alone. It just meant making space for people who actually respected me. But I also knew Sam wasn't finished. She wasn't the kind of person to just let go when she felt slighted. And part of me braced for whatever she had planned next. By Monday morning, Sam's retaliation was in full swing. She wasn't just whispering behind my back anymore. She had escalated to full-blown rumor spreading. Apparently, I was now jealous of her, obsessed with grades, and, my personal favorite, trying to sabotage her future by refusing to help. It was laughable, except people were actually buying into it. A few classmates looked at me with suspicion, like I was plotting some academic conspiracy against poor, innocent Sam. In chemistry lab, one guy muttered, "Guess you better not let her near your notes. She'll call you selfish." His friend snickered. I clenched my jaw. choosing silence over snapping back. The more I ignored it, though, the more it seemed to grow. By the middle of the week, it felt like every hallway I walked through carried echoes of selfish trailing after me. But then something unexpected happened. During math class, our teacher announced a pop quiz. The groans around the room were immediate, but when the papers were handed back the next day, the results told a different story. I had done well, as usual. But Sam? She had barely scraped a passing grade. Suddenly, her homework buddy narrative didn't look so flattering anymore. People started noticing that without me spoon-feeding her answers, her grades were slipping. Rachel leaned over during class and whispered, "Looks like karma's finally clocking in." It wasn't exactly vindication, but it was a start. Later that week, I overheard Sam arguing with Megan in the girls' bathroom. Megan sounded exasperated. "I'm not giving you my homework either, Sam. You've been using people, and it's catching up with you." I almost laughed out loud from the stall, but I stayed quiet, slipping out unnoticed. It was strange, like the power dynamics were shifting right in front of me. Sam wasn't used to people saying no. The more she pushed, the more obvious it became that the problem wasn't me, it was her. Still, the tension between us wasn't gone. At lunch one day, she deliberately sat at the table next to mine, making loud comments about some people being too full of themselves to help their friends. Her voice carried just enough that I couldn't ignore it, but I kept my eyes on my tray, refusing to give her the satisfaction. Inside, though, I wrestled with conflicting feelings. Part of me was proud for holding my ground. Another part of me hated the constant drama. I had always imagined high school as stressful enough with exams, college prep, and trying to figure out my future. I hadn't expected to be starring in some social soap opera about loyalty and betrayal. That night, as I reviewed notes for an upcoming history exam, my mom knocked on my door. "You've seemed tense lately," she said softly. "Want to talk about it?" I hesitated, then unloaded the whole story. For once, I didn't downplay or sugarcoat anything. When I finished, Mom nodded slowly. "It sounds like you've finally realized something important. Real friends don't make you feel guilty for setting boundaries." Her words stuck with me. Maybe I wasn't selfish after all. Maybe I was just finally protecting myself. The next day, I walked into school with my head held a little higher. Sam could keep throwing her tantrums. The truth had a way of revealing itself, and judging by the looks people were giving her lately, it was already starting to. But I knew Sam well enough to recognize that she wouldn't back down without one last attempt at control. And deep down, I braced myself because the storm wasn't over yet. The storm hit sooner than I expected. It was Friday afternoon, right after our history test. Everyone was buzzing with relief, some confident, some groaning about all the questions they'd blanked on. I was gathering my books when Sam stormed up to my desk. "You think you're better than everyone else, don't you?" she hissed, her voice loud enough for half the class to hear. I froze, heads turned. The room went unnervingly quiet. "No, I don't," I replied, keeping my voice calm. "I just don't let people take advantage of me anymore." Her eyes narrowed. "Advantage? You're supposed to be my friend. Friends help each other. Helping is different from doing your work for you," I shot back. A few students murmured in agreement. I noticed Rachel standing near the doorway, arms crossed, watching the scene unfold. Sam, realizing the attention wasn't entirely on her side, raised her voice even louder. "You're selfish. You're just mad because I'm more popular than you. That's what this is really about." That stung. Not because it was true, but because it revealed her real motive. Image. She wasn't upset about homework. She was upset about losing control of the narrative she had built around herself. I took a deep breath. If popularity means walking all over people, then you can keep it. I'm not interested. Gasps echoed across the room. Sam's face turned crimson. She opened her mouth to fire back, but the teacher entered at that exact moment, cutting her off. The incident didn't end there, though. By lunch, everyone was talking about the argument. Some students approached me privately, saying they respected me for standing up for myself. Others kept their distance, probably afraid of being caught in the crossfire. The surprising part was Rachel. She plopped down next to me in the cafeteria with a grin. "You handled that like a boss," she said. handing me an extra cookie from her tray. It felt good to have someone in my corner. For weeks, I had been carrying the weight of guilt and frustration. But in that moment, I realized I wasn't as alone as I thought. Sam, however, wasn't done. She tried one last maneuver. That evening, I got a string of texts from her. "You ruined my reputation. I hope you're happy. Don't ever talk to me again." The old me might have panicked, rushed to apologize, or tried to mend things. But instead, I simply deleted the messages. No reply. The silence on my end seemed to frustrate her more than anything else. For the first time, I had the upper hand, not because I won an argument, but because I stopped playing her game. That weekend, I hung out with Rachel, studied, and even caught a movie with some classmates who had noticed Sam's behavior and wanted distance from her. Slowly, my circle was shifting. I wasn't isolated anymore. I also started noticing how much more peaceful life felt when I wasn't constantly checking my phone for angry texts or stressing about whether my friend would blow up on me again. By Sunday night, as I reviewed for Monday's quiz, I realized something. The friendship with Sam wasn't just over, it was toxic all along. And letting it go wasn't a loss. It was freedom. But Sam wasn't the type to disappear quietly. I had a nagging feeling that she had one final move left in her, and I'd have to be ready. Monday morning carried a strange energy. I could feel eyes on me as I walked through the hallways. Whispers followed, but this time, they weren't about how selfish I was. Something else was in the air. Rachel caught up to me before first period. "So, you're trending," she said with a smirk. I raised an eyebrow. "Trending? What do you mean?" "Meh." She pulled out her phone and showed me. On one of the anonymous school gossip pages, someone had posted, "Maybe stop leeching off your friends and actually study for once." The comments section was brutal. Students were speculating about who it was aimed at, but the majority seemed to connect the dots to Sam. I blinked in shock. "I didn't post this." Rachel shrugged. "Doesn't matter. People believe you finally stood up for yourself. They're tired of Sam acting like she runs everything. You just lit the match." By lunch, Sam was fuming. She slammed her tray down across the cafeteria and glared at me. "This is your fault," she snapped. "I didn't post anything," I said calmly, though my heart was racing. "Liar. Everyone's laughing at me because of you." Her voice cracked with anger, and for a second, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "You brought this on yourself, Sam," I said, keeping my tone steady. "If you treat people like garbage long enough, eventually they stop putting up with it." The cafeteria went silent. Everyone heard. Sam's face twisted, and for the first time, she didn't have a comeback. She just grabbed her tray and stormed out. That was the moment everything shifted. People who used to hover around Sam, afraid of being on her bad side, started drifting away from her orbit. Some even came to sit near me. It was surreal. Rachel leaned over and whispered, "Looks like the queen just lost her crown." Still, I couldn't relax completely. Sam wasn't the type to take defeat quietly. I knew she'd try to claw her way back somehow. That evening, my suspicion was confirmed. I got a call from my dad. Apparently, Sam's mom had called him, complaining that I was bullying her daughter. My dad was confused, since I'd never been in trouble before. I had to explain everything. The copying, the insults, the confrontation. To my relief, he believed me. "Sounds like you finally grew a backbone," he said. "I'm proud of you. Don't let anyone guilt you into doing their work." For the first time, I felt like I had full support from family, from new friends, and even from myself. But Sam wasn't finished. The next morning, she showed up with a forced smile, acting overly friendly as if nothing had happened. It was unsettling. "Hey," she said sweetly, sliding into the seat next to me before class. "So, we've had our little drama, but let's move past it, okay? No hard feelings." I stared at her, trying to figure out the angle. She never apologized. She never admitted what she did wrong. She just wanted me to reset things so she could go back to taking advantage of me. "No, Sam," I said finally. "I'm not pretending this didn't happen. We're not friends anymore." Her smile dropped, and for a flicker of a moment, I saw the fury she was barely containing. "Fine," she muttered, her voice low. "You'll regret this. Maybe once upon a time, that would have scared me. But now, I wasn't intimidated. If anything, I felt lighter. The old chapter of my life was closing. The question was, what would the new one look like? And would Sam really try one last desperate move? After my last rejection of her fake apology, Sam tried a few desperate attempts to regain control. She whispered to a few classmates that I was paranoid and overdramatic. She spread rumors that I had cheated on a test, even though my grades were spotless and teachers knew better. But none of it stuck. The tide had turned and she couldn't force it back. For the first time in a long while, people started treating me differently, not as an accessory to Sam, not as someone in her shadow, but as myself. Classmates I barely knew struck up conversations. Even teachers seemed to look at me with newfound respect after I stood my ground. It was liberating. But the biggest change came within me. I realized how small I had made myself just to keep her happy. I had been so afraid of losing her approval, of making waves, that I'd let her drain me for years. Now I was free. One afternoon, Rachel and I were sitting outside on the bleachers, watching the track team practice. She nudged me with her shoulder. So, do you miss her at all? I thought about it for a moment. No, I miss the idea of what I thought our friendship was. But the reality? That was never real. Rachel grinned. Good answer. Sam wasn't completely erased from my life, of course. We still shared classes, still passed each other in the halls. But the dynamic was different. She looked smaller somehow, still loud, still dramatic, but without her entourage backing her, she seemed less powerful. I didn't hate her. I didn't even want revenge anymore. I just wanted distance. And that, I realized, was the ultimate victory. Living my life without her claws in it. Graduation loomed a few months away, and for the first time, I was excited about the future. I had plans, real plans, college applications, clubs I actually wanted to join. Friends who valued me for who I was, not what I could do for them. The day grades were posted. I ran into Sam outside the library. She glanced at me, then quickly looked away. There was no fight left in her, just silence. And that silence said more than any insult she'd ever thrown at me. The girl who once called me selfish because I didn't let her copy my homework was now just another classmate, no power, no control, no influence over me. As I walked home that day, the weight I had carried for years was gone, and in its place was something better, self-respect. I had learned the hard way that being someone's friend doesn't mean sacrificing your boundaries, your work, or your dignity. Real friends don't drain you, they stand beside you. And finally, I had people like that in my corner. For the first time, I felt like I was exactly where I belonged. The end.